super fun. This is going to be a super fun time for all of us and to celebrate all of you. Listen, I am really excited to be here this morning. Last week, we started a new sermon series that we titled Mind Games. But here's the thing, is that if you didn't get a chance to, if you weren't here last week, I'm going to encourage you to go back and watch. You can watch online, you can watch on YouTube, you visit our website, there's plenty of places. Just to give you an idea of where we are today. Before I get any further, I want to give you guys just a really quick recap on last week. Last week, we talked about the battle that we are all facing, and it is not just a battle that is happening around us, there is a battle that is happening within us. We talked about some of the lies that we hear, some of the things that we are listening to constantly, the voice of the enemy that Jesus called the father of lies, also known as the accuser. And here's what makes him so dangerous, is that he doesn't just lie outright. He mixes lies with just enough truth to make them believable. And that is why sometimes some of the things that we hear, they sound very convincing. That's why sometimes it actually feels like some of the things are so real. We said that if he can distort the truth, that he can direct our life. And if he can direct our life, then destruction doesn't have to be forced, it becomes inevitable. Sometimes he shows up sounding like our own thoughts, our own voice, with an idea, with a perspective. And if you believe it long enough, it doesn't just stay as a thought, it will begin to shape the way that you live. It influences your decisions, your reactions, your emotions, and eventually directs the way of your life. Because here's the thing, is that what you believe determines how you live. So today, I want to show you how this actually plays out. I want to take a moment in the life of the people of Israel where they encounter something like this, like a mind game. And it is found in the book of Numbers 13. So picture this. The people of Israel have been slaves in Egypt for generations. They used to be free at one point, and now all of a sudden they can escape. They're slaves. There is no freedom. They can't even see a future for themselves. They have a promise that God gave them, but it almost feels like it has faded through the generations until God stepped in. He delivered them with miraculous displays of power. He brings plagues into Egypt. Pharaoh refuses to let Israel go, and eventually he does. Israel is now facing the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army is chasing right behind them. Then God parts the Red Sea, and Israel is able to walk over to the other side on dry land. On top of all of this that just happened, God feeds them in the wilderness when they get hungry. He brings water from a rock. He leads them with a cloud during the day and fire by night. They have seen miracles after miracles after miracles. Their situation now, it has changed because they're no longer slaves. Their position has changed. They're no longer slaves. Everything around them has changed. They are no longer slaves. They are free. And now they are standing at the edge of something that God promised them. The land of Canaan. A promise that was made a long, long time ago. A land of their own. And this isn't just any land. This is the promise that God made generations earlier. A land flowing with milk and honey, it has been described. A place of provision. A place of purpose. A place where everything God said would begin for them. This sounds like a good deal. And now they're standing right in front of it. And then God speaks to Moses, and he tells Moses in Numbers 13:2, it says, "Send out men to explore the land of Canaan, the land I am giving to the Israelites. Send one leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes. God said, I am giving. God didn't say, I may give, or there may be a possibility, or hopefully one day I am going to give. He says, I am giving. So Moses is obedient. He listens. Moses sends out 12 men. These are 12 leaders. These are 12 voices, 12 minds, 12 pairs of eyes and ears. 12 men exploring the same promise. They go into the land, and everything that God said is true. Numbers 27, verse 27, it says, they gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is the fruit. I like to call it, here is the proof. The land is good. The fruit is massive. The opportunity is real. God didn't exaggerate. God didn't overpromise. He told them the truth. I'm pretty sure they even got a chance to taste the fruit. But then, here comes the battle. Verse 28. But the people who live, this is part of the report that they gave back. They just reported that God promised everything is good, right? Now they also add on to it. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. Now, the descendants of Anak are known as large. They're considered to be giants in the land. Now, at this point, now the battle begins for everybody. And the battle is beginning here. Because the same 12 men walk into the same land. They see the same fruit. They see the same giants. And come back with two completely different conclusions. 10 of them said, we can't. But 2 of them said, we can. Numbers 13:30. It says, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. And then just another verse, it says 31, we can't take those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All of the people we saw there are of great size. All the people we saw there are of great size. Here's the thing. It's the same land, the same moment, the same reality, the same God. Nothing changed externally. The land didn't change, the promise didn't change, God didn't change. But something was very different internally for the 10 out of the 12. And then they say something that completely blows my mind. Verse 33. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes. We looked the same to them. Think about that. Think about that for a second. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes. That's how they were seeing themselves. I got a question. How do you know how they saw you? Did they have a conversation with the giants? Did they talk with them? Did they have to look that high up? How do they know that they look like grasshoppers to them? Here's the thing, is that they don't. This wasn't reality. This was their perception. That's how they saw themselves. They weren't just reporting what they saw, they were revealing how they thought. Before they ever lost a battle out there, they lost the battle in here, in their mind. And here's something we all need to understand about moments like this, is that oftentimes we don't see life as it is. We see life as our own mind has been shaped. And some of us are doing the same exact thing right now. This is for me. You can be standing in front of something that God is doing, something that God is opening, something that God is calling you into, and you still talk yourself out of it. That's where I usually land. I walk into opportunities and I expect to fail. God opens doors, and my first thought is, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I'm going to be good at it. And here's the thing, is that it may not even be true. But it has to do with the way that my mind has been trained through the years. And for me, the question is, Jose, where did that come from? Where did it come from? Sometimes it comes for having distorted thinking. And that's the question we all have to answer. Where did it come from? Where did it begin? When did it start? Because what happened to the people of Israel didn't actually start at that specific moment, right, where they were at the edge. It didn't start there. That experience in Canaan wasn't some random occurrence. It was a result of hearing the wrong things from generation to generation and generation. In Genesis, there's a lot of foundational things that all have to do with us as humans. Let me explain. Before sin enter the picture, the Bible says that Adam and Eve were not clothed. They didn't have clothes on, and they felt absolutely no shame. There was no insecurity. There was no fear. They were open. There was trust. Why? I think it was because they saw themselves the way that God saw them. Their identity was fully rooted in God. But in a single moment of deception, the enemy reframed what God had said, and when the truth was twisted enough, they believed the lie. And Adam and Eve ate from the very tree that God said, do not eat. And in that moment, sin entered. And in Genesis 3:7, it says, then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. And this is eye-opening to me, because I don't think anybody told them that they had no clothes on. I don't think there was this voice that said to them, psst, Adam, you're not wearing any bottoms. There wasn't somebody teaching them insecurity. It came from within. Something changed in how they saw themselves. And then God asks them, who told you that you were naked? Who told you? And here's the thing, is that I don't think that God was asking that question to get information from them. I think this question is to make us think a little deeper. Who told you that? In other words, the way that you are seeing yourself didn't come from me. You are not seeing yourselves through you are now seeing yourselves through a voice that it's not mine. But what changed? They stopped seeing themselves the way that God saw them, and they started seeing themselves through their own lens. They went from security to insecurity. They went from confidence to hiding. And ever since that moment, we have been living with the same distorted lens. Every single one of us. This isn't just about wrong thoughts. This is about a wrong way of seeing things. A lens that has been shaped by fear, by shame, by past experiences, insecurity. And now, as we look back into Israel's story, as we look back as they're standing right at the edge, now this story makes sense to me. Now I get it. I know why they're thinking like this. I understand what the thought is behind all of that. When those 10 spies saw the land of Canaan, they didn't just see giants. They saw themselves as small. And that didn't start in Canaan. They didn't start at that specific moment. That started with a distorted way of seeing. They said, we seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes. That language is identity language, not reality. Here's the thing, is that type of language is not even logical. It's not even mathematical. You can't even put two and two together. There is no way that I am going to look like a grasshopper. It doesn't even make any sense, but it's making sense to them. And that's how they saw themselves. That they switched their identity from being chosen, being people that have just been delivered, being people that God has provided, to being grasshoppers. The thing is that when our identity is off, our interpretation of reality will always be off. So they saw, here's the thing, is that they saw God's promise. Here is the promise. But they saw it as a threat. Here is an opportunity. I'm giving you an opportunity. Here is an opportunity. And they saw it as danger. Here's your future. I'm showing you your future. And they saw it as defeat. But here's the thing, is that it wasn't even true. Their identity was off, so their reality was off. They had the wrong perspective. They were seeing through their own wrong lens. And here's where this hits for all of us. That we're not always struggling because of what's in front of us. Sometimes we struggle because of how we see certain things, how we see ourselves. We are seeing through our own situation. Sometimes we see through our past. Sometimes we see through our pain, our insecurity, words that were spoken over us, experiences that shaped us, even the way that people treated us. And here's the thing, that without even realizing it, we've been looking at everything through a distorted lens. Then we begin to call it truth. But God is asking the same question today that he asked back in the garden. Who told you that? Because the voice may not be coming from God. And here's the thing, that this didn't just happen to Adam and Eve. This didn't just happen to Israel. This is still happening to us. We're still seeing ourselves through the wrong lens. We're still believing the wrong voice. So the question becomes, How do we break out of that? How do we stop seeing through that distorted lens and start seeing the way that God sees us? How do we do that? And here is where the Apostle Paul gives us the answer in Romans 12. Because now we have seen what happened in Israel. Now we've seen why it happened why it happened with Adam and Eve. And just because that's how it started doesn't mean that that's the pattern that we should follow. That's the path that we should follow. This can change. It can change. And this is where Romans 12 shows us how. And what's interesting is that the Apostle Paul doesn't start with your thoughts. He actually starts with surrender. Let me show you. Romans 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. He says in Romans 12, he says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. And here's the thing, is that we cannot just skip this part if we're going to be talking about our minds. This is the first thing that we have to tackle. Because after everything that God has done, after God sending Jesus to pay for our sins, to die on the cross, after the mercy that we have received, after the grace, after the forgiveness, after his faithfulness, our response cannot be halfway. And that word offer right there, in the original Greek, it means a few things. It means to present. It means to dedicate or dedicate for service. It means to stand besides, to yield, and this is my favorite, to place something at someone else's disposal. In other words, it is the picture of taking your life and putting it fully in God's hands. And here's the thing, it is not just one piece, not just parts, not having a limit. No, it means to place everything in God's hands. Jose, everything? Yes, everything. And we actually talked a little bit about this last week. We talked about a courtroom scenario. We talked that Jesus stands as your defender, like a lawyer in a courtroom advocating for you in every accusation. But here's the thing. A lawyer can be ready to defend you. But if you never show up to the courtroom, then you never place yourself in a position to be represented. You have to be present. You have to make yourself available. You have to show up. And in some cases, it actually becomes a sacrifice. Because now we have to find babysitters. Now we have to miss work. And in the same way, surrender is making your life available to God. It costs something. It requires something. You do not drift into surrender mode. You actually have to choose it. Which means that there is no such thing as a halfway surrender. There is no, I am going to surrender, but just a little bit. Surrender is all or nothing. If transformation is going to take place, then everything must be surrender. Transformation demands surrender. In other words, Paul is urging us, God is ready to move on your behalf, but you have to show up and surrender your whole life. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. Every part of your life, every part of your thinking, every perspective, even your entire body. Because if God has given everything, the only response that makes sense is to give him everything. And this is why this chapter starts here. Because if surrender doesn't happen first, then transformation won't follow. That means that the next verse in chapter 12 won't happen. Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and prove what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. There is an order. God doesn't begin with your mind, he begins with your surrender. Because a mind that is not surrendered cannot be renewed. And hearing this, let me tell you, this hurts me. It got me when I first heard this. When I first realized, it got me. It did. To me, it was a corrective benefit. Because that means that while I've been trying to transform my mind by filling it with things, Christian things, doing all of the right things, all of the right Christian things, if I am holding everything back from God, then I cannot expect him to change what I refuse to release. That hurts. There is a beautiful corrective benefit to surrender to God, and that is a renewed mind. And Paul doesn't stop there. He says in Romans 12:1, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Now look at this. A sacrifice, by definition, has to cost something. But Paul says it's a living sacrifice, which means it is active. It is daily. It is ongoing. This is waking up every morning and saying, God, I am yours again today. But here's one problem that I see with a living sacrifice, and I don't know if you ever thought or heard this. A living sacrifice is alive. A living sacrifice is constantly moving. A living sacrifice, it has a job. A living sacrifice has responsibilities. It has to pay bills. It has a schedule. It's got things to do. Sometimes it's got to cut the grass in the summer, and it's got to shovel in the winter. It's got to have some hard conversations once in a while. You get the point? A living sacrifice doesn't stay in one place. It is constantly moving. I'm going to ask the band to come up. Now let me tell you this story. Years ago, my sister had a dog, and I love watching this dog. So sometimes when she had to go to work for long periods of time, I would dog sit. And one time, this dog smelled horrible. You don't understand. It was horrible. So I called my sister and I say, hey, listen, this dog stinks. Can I give it a bath? She's like, yes. Here's all the stuff. She gave me all of the instructions, everything that I needed to do. Got it. I know what to do now. Filled up the tub, had just enough water, checked the sprayer. Everything is good. Water temperature is good. Grab the dog, jumps in. He's having a blast in there. As soon as I flip the switch to turn the sprayer, that dog took off running. I left the door to the bathroom open, so this dog is running all over the place. Carpet, couches, it's shaking everywhere. It's running, and I'm running after it. Come here. It's not listening. I'm on the floor, crawling, trying to get this dog. Nothing is working. Eventually, I get down on the floor, and I just sit there, and it's staring at me with the most sweetest eyes ever. And I'm able to get close. I grab it. I walked in, put him back into the tub, washing him. I grabbed the sprayer, I unhooked it, turned it back on, and slowly I started to wash that dog. And here's the thing, that's us. That's us. We say to God, I am yours today. And then life hits and we take off running. We're running. And so Paul is saying, no, stay there. Stay surrendered. Stay available. And then he says something that almost doesn't fit at all. He says that it's holy and pleasing to God. Look, let's be honest. When we hear the word sacrifice, we think about loss. We think pain. We think giving up something. But sometimes that is pleasing. So at first it feels like it doesn't fit in here, but it actually does fit, because what pleases God is not that you lost something, is that you gave yourself to Him. And that makes it holy. And when your life is surrendered like that, surrendering all of you, your decisions, your thought, your responsibilities, even your body, you're not filtered through what feels right, you are filtering through what honors God. And when your life is surrendered like that, it becomes pleasing to God, because your heart is fully His. Then Paul says, this is your true and proper worship. In other words, this is what worship actually looks like. Worship is not just what happens here on a Sunday morning. This is good what we're doing here. But worship is how we live when we walk out of this building. A surrender life is a worshipful life. And a life that is not surrender, no matter how good it looks on the outside, it's not worship. So here's the question we are all facing today. Where do I begin? Where do I start? It doesn't have to be complicated. It's going to cost something. It's going to cost us something. But complicated is not. Because for some of us, maybe the thing that we have to do is to actually surrender. We've been doing life our own way, making our own decisions. We're trying to figure it out all on our own. And today, maybe it's time to say, God, I need you. I'm surrendering my life fully to you. Not just parts of my life, but all of it. And maybe for some of us, it's not that we haven't surrendered before. Maybe we have. But life got hard, and we're running all over the place. There are things that we're still holding on to. Thoughts, there are habits, there are control things. We are afraid. Today, maybe it's time to release some of those things. To let it go. To stop running and let God take care of it. To stop carrying what God never asked you to carry. Because here's the thing, is at the end of the day, whether it's surrendering for the first time, or surrendering again, or releasing, the invitation is the same. Put your life in God's hands. All of it. Listen, as the band is going to play in the background, I want to give you just a few minutes to talk to God on your own. This is going to be personal time. They're just going to play, they're going to sing. And tell Him whatever you need to tell Him, whatever is in your heart. Tell Him. Let Him know. Right where you are, just you could say, God, I am yours. I surrender my life to you. And I will come back, and then I will dismiss all of us.